and how to deal with our clients. We thank you and we bless you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. All right, let's please be on our feet as we take the anthem. Thank you. We may take our seats. Like I said, today we want to learn about registration of firms with the Registrar General, and also have some information as to how best we can deal with our clients or our customers. And the resource person to do that for us this afternoon is Mr. Ni Obodai Toto, a chartered accountant, cybersecurity expert, and he has a lot of qualifications actually. And he's the one to deliver this afternoon. So with a hand of applause, let us welcome Mr. Toto to give us his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blebu. I must say I feel so honored to be part of today's event, and I want to seize the opportunity to thank the survey department, or the leadership of the survey department of the Ghana Institute of Surveyors, the land surveying division. I said the survey department, sorry, the land surveying division of the Ghana Institute of Surveyors. And I do not take this lightly. I'm hoping that at the end of the day, we'll be able to share some ideas, share some information that would enlighten all of us, and we'll go home with some good information. Most of the things that I'll be sharing with you this afternoon, I guess there are some that you already know, but I mean, it's good to be reminded. Once you're reminded from time to time, sometimes, you know, it gives you the edge to institute strategies to do the right thing, and also to keep abreast with time and with new developments. I want to seize the opportunity again to welcome those of you who are seated here, Good afternoon to you. Welcome to our online audience and those who've joined us by Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just like you heard, my name is Nyobo Daitoto, and I'll be your chief servant for this afternoon's event. Thank you. Please indulge me for these few minutes. We'll start. So there are two topics that I was given to handle for this afternoon's presentation. The first one being company registration with the Registrar General's Department, now called the Office of the Registrar of Companies. The second one being client relations. These two are heavy topics that cannot be treated within the time slot that I've been given, but I'll try my very best to see if I can squeeze these two topics within the time allotted. We'll go deep into the company registration requirements, and then we'll touch on the salient points in relation to client relationship management. So our first presentation will be based on the company registration process. And is this, have you slotted? It's not working. Please, if you could allow for just 1 minute, we'll come back. The USB. Okay. So let's go to the first slide. That's registration of firms with the Office of the Registrar of Companies. Please, the next slide. Okay, so our content for this particular presentation will cover the background of the Registrar of Companies. Then we'll look at some legislations and some acts that cover their setup and all of that. We'll look at their current and future location. We'll also look at a slide that depicts the persona of the Registrar of Companies, or the new person that has been, should I say, elected or appointed as the Registrar of Companies. We'll look at the services provided by the Registrar of Companies, and then we'll look at the company registration process, the requirements for registration process, which includes the completion of the forms. We'll look at how to acquire a TIN number, and then the costs involved. We'll look at renewals and then the filing of annual returns as well. And that would end it for the day. And then we would invite you for questions. Now, by way of background, the Registrar General's Department was in the past tasked to do the duty or undertake the duty of registering companies within the country. Companies and businesses of all sorts were those that were supposed to be registered. And part of the tasks that they were mandated to undertake includes company and business registrations, the registration of patents, registration of marriages, estate administration, intellectual property registrations, etc. The next slide, please. Now, with the passage of time, it was realized that the job or the duties or the functions performed by the Registrar General's Department was so Herculean. And so then there was the need for there to be a split. The number of businesses within the country increased, and then the Registrar General's Department became so overstretched. Now, this had a negative impact on businesses in terms of service delivery and how we got responses to certain business needs. So as a result, and many other factors, a team of experts were commissioned to look into the matter and provide recommendations for execution. Now, their work resulted in the enactment of the new Companies Act, Act 2019, which is Act 992. Now, this new Companies Act brought into effect several changes, one of which resulted in the setting up or the establishment of the office of the registrar of companies. Now, the office of the registrar of companies, as it is known today, was contrived from the Registrar General's department. Now, this company was commissioned on the 22nd of July by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And His Excellency added that the ORC was strategically created to help in the fight against corruption and will also serve as a veritable partner in that cause. We have seen the setup of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and this was, announced by the president that they were going to help in the fight against corruption. But then the president also sees this, and by virtue of the act that was enacted, and by certain requirements, which we will look at in the course of the presentation, the ORC is also going to help in the fight against corruption, i.e. some of the things that they require now as part of a registration of companies within the country is where you are required to complete a form on who the beneficial owners of companies are. When we get to that slide, we'll go into detail and we would explain that. Now, the establishment of the ORC does not in any way abolish the existence of the Registrar General's Department. They will continue with other traditional functions, and that is enumerated in the next slide. The ORC was birthed by the new Companies Act, as I said earlier, Act 2019, which is Act 992, and was hived from the Registrar General's Department. Now, this step sought to actualize the original intent of the framers of the previous Companies Act in 1963 and then Act 197, which made the registration of companies and businesses a temporary function of the Registrar General's Department. Now, the ORC will continue. We'll look at their current and future locations. Currently, they are housed in the old building, or let me say the existing premises of the Registrar General's Department. And they will continue to operate in Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, and Sunyani until the construction of their head office is completed and their operations are moved there. The government currently has acquired 2-acre plots in the University of Ghana for the construction of a new office complex to house the operations of the ORC. We've shared on the slide some of their contact details so that if you need to contact them, it will be made easier, or you'll find it easy to contact the ORC. Now, you need to know the person behind the ORC. This being a new setup, this being a new institution, it's important to know the face behind this company. She goes by the name Mrs. Jemima Mama Owari. She happened to be the previous, or let me put it this way, she happened to be the Registrar General. But with the setup of the Office of the Registrar of Companies, she's been appointed now to head the Registrar of Companies, or the Office of the Registrar of Companies. Now, shall we look at some services provided by the Office of the Registrar of Companies? These include registration of all private and public companies. Now, companies either limited by shares or unlimited by shares. I'm sure as we go on, we'll get the opportunity to explain what it means for a company to be limited by shares and what it means for a company to be unlimited by shares. Now, other services provided by the Office of the Registrar of Companies include the registration of private and public companies limited by a guarantee. Now, these institutions that are limited by a guarantee include churches, NGOs, CSOs, schools, associations, unions, professional bodies like the GIS, etc. Now, it also performs the function of registration of sole proprietors, registration of subsidiary names, registration of partnerships. And I'm sure as surveyors, I want to believe that there are setups amongst you that are partnerships, even though I know most of you will be sole proprietors. Registration of limited partnerships is also a service provided by the ORC, and then registration of professionals. Now, the act that was enacted, or the New Companies Act, mandates the ORC to also register professionals. Now, even though this has been part of the law in the past, it's noted that this was not effectively implemented. So, should I say the registrar or the Registrar General's Department did not effectively undertake this task. But with the setting up of the ORC, or the Office of the Registrar of Companies, they're going to be so strong on this. I'm having to hammer on this because then I see that as surveyors, you are all professionals. You belong to a professional body. And this needs to be brought to the fore, because then you need to be registered with the Office of the Registrar of Companies before you can be deemed to be a registered professional to perform your duties or to practice in Ghana. Now, this is different from the registrations that you have with the institution GIS. Apart from that, at the end of the year, the ORC mandates every professional institution to submit its lists of members in good standing to the ORC at a fee of 30 Ghana cedis per professional, and have them registered and certificates issued. By that, if anyone searches your name in the database in Ghana as a professional, your name will pop up. And then if there are any business opportunities that are due you, if there are any contracts that you need to sign and all of that, it will be easier for you to undertake such business ventures. Now, other services also provided by the ORC, please, the next slide, is that they serve as regulator of insolvency practitioners under the Corporate Insolvency and Restructuring Act 2020, Act 1015, and its amendment, Act 1031. We've seen a setup of small, or should I say, institutions that have been seen to work as insolvency practitioners. Now, with the institution of the current law, all of these institutions are going to be regulated by the Office of the Registrar of Companies. Now, the ORC would also serve as the official liquidator for government institutions. Next. Next, we'll be looking at the company registration process. Now, we've seen in other slides, or in the preceding slides, that there are various companies, limited liability companies. We've seen partnerships, we've seen sole proprietors, we've seen companies that are limited by guarantees and all of that. As we proceed, I'll take time to explain that. But before you register a company, there are certain prerequisites that you need to undertake to initiate the whole registration process. Now, part of this, one, is to decide on the type of business you want to operate and then to run. Typically, I would say you are surveyors. There are quantity surveyors amongst you. There are valuers amongst you. land surveyors as well amongst you. The question is, do you just want to set up as a surveyor or as a surveying entity or as a valuing entity? Sorry, as a valuing entity and all of that. Now you need to critically analyze and decide on the type of business you want to run. Apart from the surveying, are there other things that you want to include in running that business? All of these must be critically assessed and analyzed before you make that decision. Now, there are various options open to you, and the choice you need to make must be one that meets your desired business objectives and the structure that you want to operate. So this, it needs a lot of thinking, it needs a lot of analysis for you to be able to come out with the appropriate business structure that you want to run. Now, the available options to the registrar are listed in the slides, in the services that we mentioned earlier. I've already mentioned this or touched on these. Whatever option it is that you choose as a kind of company that you want to register are already listed in a prior slide that we looked at. Whether you want to be a limited liability company, whether you want to be a sole proprietor, or you even want to enter into partnership with any of your colleagues here, or a foreign person, okay, or whether you even want to set up a company that is limited by a guarantee, and be it a CSO, a civil society organization, or you want to register a church, an NGO, and all of that. All of these are listed on the slide. So then you need to make that critical decision. The next decision that you need to make is that you need to choose a business name. After you've decided on what company it is that you need to run or you want to run, you need to choose a business name. Now, that business name must be unique to you. It must be something that will stand the test of time. It must be a generic name that allows for flexibility so you can engage in other services. There are times that you see you choose a business name that limits you to just one service, such that if you want to even expand your horizon, you want to expand your business and include other services, it becomes a bit difficult for you because then your name becomes the limiting factor. The name or the choice of name that you come up with should be one that should be generic, that cuts across and makes it easy for you to, diversify as it were. So if there is the need for you to in the future diversify and then venture into other businesses, it will be easy. I know some people come up with the argument that, okay, so if you choose, or if your business name typically reflects what you do, it makes it easier for identification. But then you also need to look at the fact that you would be limited, and there are disadvantages to that. You would be limited to some sort, and then if you are being sought after, if someone enters your name on the web, for example, to seek your name or to look for consulting, for example, consulting companies within Ghana, you might be limited. Or being surveyors, if we're looking for construction companies within Ghana and your name just ends with a consult, you might not find yourself, or you might not find your name popping up in the Google search domain when you're looking for companies that are into construction. So it is always important to choose a name that will stand the test of time. Choose a name that is resilient. Choose a name that is generic and that does not limit you to just the services that you provide. Next. There are several names, or there are several examples that you can research about and then find. Say, for example, if you look at the name Apple, it's a very generic name, but we know that Apple is not just not just limited to the production of computers. They are into software development, they are into production of phones and all of that. So if, for example, they had just chosen the name Apple Computers, what happens? You understand? But then just the name Apple being generic can just cut across every now and then. And then with time and with proper marketing activities and all of that, that name becomes a household name. And then it makes it easier for you to be properly identified. Now, the name that you choose must also be unique, must be short, and should not be so difficult to pronounce. I have seen instances where some people register company names and they call it, I saw a very funny name somewhere. I should have picked it. Kakalika, for example. Okay, funny as that name is, it's not everyone who can pronounce the word kakalika. I saw another business name somewhere, which was so long. It said, "The Lord is my shepherd enterprise." You know, very funny name, so long. How many people can mention the name? Even though, fine, we are educated, we can read and write, but then look at the masses. Look at your customer base, the people you seek to attract. How many of them can really pronounce the name, "The Lord is my shepherd enterprise"? You know, sometimes I would say that the name that you choose should also reflect, but like I said, reflect what you do. But like I said earlier, this has a limiting factor. And I would suggest that you always go with a generic name, which makes life a bit easier for you. Now, after you've chosen your name, you need to, or after you've chosen the desired name, you need to conduct a name search. This can be done online, but unfortunately, the site for the ORC is down. Information that I've gathered is that the World Bank is actually financing a project for them. So they're hoping that by the second quarter of next year, the site should be up and running. And that should facilitate proper business or conducting of proper business within the country. But currently, the site comes up, it goes down, it comes up, it goes down. They are facing serious challenges with the site. And they're hoping that once the site is up, it should be easy for you to go online and conduct a name search online. So you can sit at the comfort of your home, go to their website, slot in the name and find out if the name is available for use. But currently, what you need to do is to go to the Registrar General's Department or the ORC's office and then conduct the name search. Now, if the name is available, you can reserve it if your plans are not far advanced or you do not have the resources to register the business immediately. And you can do this for a period of 2 months at a fee. Now, you can also do an extension of the reservation for a further 2 months. Please move to the next slide. Now, if the name that you sought to look for exists, there is a way of beating that by adding some phrase to the name to make it a bit distinctive from the already existing name. So, for example, if you search for the name PWC, for example, and the name is already in existence, and you definitely you can't use that name, right? But you can tweak it and make it PWC Ghana Limited. But that is if PWC, the original PWC, is not being registered as Ghana Limited. Do you get it? PWC, as we know, is a it's a partnership, right? So let me give you another example that would perhaps come home. If you look for the name Nougat Limited, and it's already in existence, but you still like the name Nougat, and you want to use it, you can change the spelling from N-O-G-A-T to N-O-U-G-A-T. Do you get it? Pronunciation is the same, spelling is different. That you can have. Or you can add a short phrase, Nougat and Sons Limited. That can also be done for you. Now, once you want to reserve the preferred name that you have, you need to complete a form, submit it to the office of the ORC, and that will be done for you. Now, some good reasons for reserving a business name are the following. One may not be ready with the resources that you require to register the company or to start operations. And so then you just want to reserve it whilst you still brainstorm, whilst you still think about exactly what you want to do as the company. Okay. Now, the other reason is that you want to ensure a situation where when you are now ready to set off or you are now ready to register, the name has not been taken by some other entity or some other person. Now, the second thing you need to do, or the second phase in relation to the registration process, is that you need to acquire a TIN number. Now, currently, the government is rolled out a policy where all our Ghana card numbers are being converted to TIN numbers. So to that extent, those who already have TIN numbers and also have the Ghana card number, you need to go to any GRA office and they'll merge the two for you. That way, your old TIN number no longer exists, but then your Ghana card number becomes your TIN number. And that is what will be used even for you when you're registered with what the GRA as an individual. Now, this applies to persons who've registered companies as sole proprietors and then as partners. But for limited liability companies, the TIN numbers required here are two. One, that is for the company, then the other, that is for the directors. So typically, the directors would have gone through the process of merging their existing TIN number with their Ghana card number to generate one number, which is now the new TIN, which is also now your Ghana card number. But during the registration process, when you're registering a limited liability company or a partnership, then the registrar general in the process or the ORC in the process will generate a TIN number to uniquely identify your company. Now, the other thing you need to do is to complete the business registration forms manually or online. But like I stated earlier, it's a bit more difficult to register online now because the website is down. The World Bank is financing the development of a new website. So manually, you need to go to the office of the ORC and purchase a form. Purchase a form. Or you could still go online, download the forms, complete them, and physically submit them to the ORC. Now, I shared with you the website or the domain where you could click on and download the forms for completion, which is rgd.gov.gh/forms.html. Now, the completion of the forms is in stages, and at this point, you need to be very careful and you need to be very critical and you need to pay attention to detail to be able to complete the forms properly. I've also shared with you what you will find online if you click on the link that I've provided. That link should take you to this site, which has been shared on the slide. And now here, you'll be able to download all the various applicable forms, which are, apply to what you need, i.e., if you want to register a sole proprietor, if you want to register a partnership, if you want to register an external company, okay, if you want to register a limited liability company and all of that. Now, earlier on in my submission, I made mention of the fact that one of the duties of the ORC is to help fight corruption. And by that, the law has instituted a new form that needs to be completed. And that's the second on the slide, being a form to be completed by the beneficial owners of the companies. Now, what has happened in the past is that people elect others or nominate others and use them to register companies. So typically you see that a company is being registered, but the true owners of the company cannot be traced because they have elected someone to stand in as owners of the company. And then they sit back and seek to run the company and maneuver things, move funds left, right, center, benefit from the company, and they cannot be traced. We all know that currently the government is hard pressed for funds, if that is the word to use, and they're trying to, as it were, use every available avenue to rake in a lot of funds as much as possible for development purposes. So to that extent, they want to clamp down on everyone who does any illicit act. And they know that one of the ways by which people creatively move funds and benefit from companies without being known is by electing people to be owners whilst they sit back and maneuver funds. Now, another way of checking this is through transfer pricing. I'm not sure we're going deep into detail in this, but then where companies need to deal with each other at arm's length, but then they find creative ways of either reducing the price for the sister company or increasing the price and selling at outrageous prices to each other just to make companies. People create shell companies and all of that. That is not the focus of our discussion today, but this is just to give you some example. So the government typically will be able to closely monitor transactions that, as it were, should have been carried out at arm's length, but didn't happen so. And also check transfer pricing issues and dealings within companies, okay, and ensure that companies file their right returns in relation to their transfer pricing returns and all of that. So on this slide, if you go to the site and you try to expand, you click on the plus. If you click on the plus, it will expand for you, and then you see the various forms that you need to download listed out there for you. In your spare time, you want to go there and then check this out for yourself. Now, the completion of the forms or the company registration process, again, now in relation to the form completion, some of the important things that you need to beware of, some of the important things that you need to cater for if you want to register a company limited by shares is that you need to determine your stated capital. Now, your stated capital typically is the capital that you are allowed to trade with. Now, this is determined by you. So, and this can be arrived at if you take the number of shares that you've issued out and the price that you have internally decided to price each share. If you multiply the number of shares by the price of each share, the product of that should give you your stated capital. And this is determined by you. Okay. You also need to be aware of the authorized shares. Now, the authorized shares in relation to a limited liability company typically is the number of shares that the firm or the company is allowed by way of its constitution to float out there. Okay. You also need to understand that you need an auditor's consent letter. Now, this is a prerequisite for you to have, so you can attach this to your forms after you've completed them and submit them to the office of the ORC. Now, if you intend to form a partnership, you also need a partnership deed. Now, you need to understand that this partnership deed needs to be stamped at the Lands Commission. It takes time to get this done. The official fee is 150 cedis. Well, you didn't hear this from me. You didn't hear this from me. But my inquiries, I don't know if it's right to even say it, but well, let me just leave it here. It takes time. It really takes time for you to have the partnership deed stamped. And the official fee is 150 cedis. But you and I know that you can actually facilitate this and get this done faster. This will come at a bit of a higher cost, but well, if you can grease that oil or put some lubrication in the system, I'm sure this will come out faster than would have taken the usual time to come up. Now, there are certain fees that you pay when you're registering a company. And again, I said earlier I said earlier, before you even decide to undertake a business, you need to figure out the kind of business you need to, or you want to run. Be it a sole proprietor, you want to be engaged in a partnership with another colleague, or you want to register a company limited by guarantee, or a company limited by shares, or a company unlimited by shares. Now, for the companies limited by shares and unlimited by shares, you need to pay a stamp duty of 1% of your stated capital. Now, bear in mind that the stated capital is something that you decide on. So, for example, if you have elected that your stated capital will be 1,000 Ghana cedis, then you need to pay a stamp duty of 1% of that amount, in addition to the registration fee or the incorporation fee of 450 Ghana cedis. Now, the same applies to companies that are unlimited by shares. Same applying to companies limited by what? Guarantees. But for sole proprietors, you don't pay stamp duties because then you don't have stated capital. Same with partnerships. You don't pay stamp duties because then you don't have stated capital. Now, a partnership, let me explain this. We will delve into some of the advantages and disadvantages of running a sole proprietor or a partnership and all of that. But then, if I should put it in this way, from a layman's point of view, a partnership for me is an advanced sole proprietorship, because at the end of the day, you are not, your liability to the company is not limited. The only difference is that in a partnership, one person is not bearing all the burden. That burden or that liability, should the company go bankrupt, should the partnership go bankrupt, it's shared amongst two or more people. Basically, that's all it means. But then I would put it this way, that a partnership is an advanced sole proprietorship. I did a bit of asking around, and the information that I gathered was that most of us in the land survey department, right? Land survey division. Why do I keep saying department? Land survey division run sole proprietorships. And I'm just thinking, would it be worthwhile to explore going into partnerships, for example, so we can grow bigger companies? Because then, if you are a sole proprietor, you know, there's this thing, you know, that thing, Ghanaians, we're not too good with partnerships. Of course, there are issues which we may look at, or we will look at as we traverse, but running a sole proprietor comes with a lot of risks. Of course, all the income accrued to you, and people see that as a benefit. Yes. But the downsides, if you'd ask me, is just so enormous. How about looking at it from this angle? Compare 100% of 100 with 10% of 1,000, or let me say 20% of 1,000. For example, 100% of 100 is where you are a sole proprietor. Everything you make comes to you, but you are small. Everything revolves around you. You are the accountant. You are the brain behind the company. You are the same person doing marketing. You are the same person handling almost everything. The vision of the company, everything dwells on you. Every income comes to you, but same are the expenses. You get to bear all the expenses. Now, if there are losses, everything comes also to you. Now, I believe we've heard of instances where sole proprietors have gone bankrupt, and that's it. It affects the family, the whole income. And for you know, that sole proprietor is the breadwinner. Okay. Everything just goes down. The family is affected. The man is arrested by creditors and all of that. Everything just goes down the drain, right? Now, the other downside being that if this man passes away, I'm using man because I'm a man, forgive me. I know there are women surveyors. And so if you're online and you're a woman, please forgive me before the gender activists pick me up. So if this man passes away, that's it. The company goes down. But we've seen this, and the Lebanese are really good at this, where their companies have transcended generations, has moved from one generation to another, and it's the same name. It's the same name. It's the same name. The family members continue, partners continue, business partners continue. The name exists even when the owner is dead, or one of the owners is dead, if that is the way I should put it. One of the owners is dead. With a sole proprietor, once the man dies, that's it. It ends there. If the man was not lucky enough to get any of his siblings or his children to be trained to take after him, then that's it. Everything goes down. But how about partnerships? Properly registered. Okay. 3 people so for a partner, you could have between 2 and 50 people form a partnership. The income comes to you. Now you have a wide variety of brains to draw from. You have a wide variety of ideas and expertise to draw from. Okay. Each one comes in with his own strength. Based on your partnership agreements, you contribute certain amounts, you contribute certain monies, and your profits are shared based on that. And that is why earlier on I said compare 100% of 100 to 20% of 1,000, for example. So you realize that in a partnership, yes, a lot more people come to share the profits, but then you get to earn more because then the profits to be shared is bigger. Now, should anything happen to the partnership, the burden is less, because then your share of the debt or the liability to be settled is only limited to your percentage within the partnership. So, for example, if the partnership goes bust and is indebted to the tune of maybe 1 million Ghana cedis and your share is 20%, pay 200,000, you are gone. Rather than being the only person having to pay 1 million Ghana cedis. You know, so I would suggest that members should look at this and see how to grow by forming partnerships. I mean, you can decide not to just limit it to the land survey division. Forgive me, the land survey division. I'm aware you have the quantity surveying division and then the valuing division. You could come together, form a consortium. You may never know, one from each division, form a construction company. You have an in-house survey, have an in-house valuation, have an in-house quantity surveying, grow into a multinational. That way you can help Mother Ghana grow better by reducing the unemployment rate within the country, and also helping someone to put food on their table. Next. Now, these are other informations that relates to the company registration. I just added this, so I know it's not really as it were, might not be really beneficial, but just for information purposes. I just share this with you. Now, companies with joint foreign ownership and 100% foreign ownership have different minimum equity requirements. Now, the minimum equity requirement for companies in these categories are for a 100% foreign owned company, you need equity requirement of 500,000 US dollars. For a joint venture between a foreigner and a Ghanaian, you need $200,000. Now, for trading enterprises, whether it is jointly owned or it is 100% foreign, jointly owned meaning that you have a local partner and then there's a foreign partner, you need a capital of 1 million US dollars. Now, incorporation and filing fees are also required to be paid upon submission of the business registration forms. The total cost here being 450 cedis, and this is payable directly in cash to the ORC. Now, if you get to the office of the ORC, you will see some tellers there. Some would help you with the completion of your forms online. That's if the website is still down. Some are responsible for the taking of cash or payments and issuance of receipts and all of that. So once your forms are completed and you have the requisite documents, which is your partnership deed, or you have your auditor's consent letter, the completed forms, your TIN number, and every other requirement that you need, you can quietly or gently walk to the offices of the registrar of companies, submit your forms, and then have the registration done for you. Next slide, please. I think I've touched on this. We can move to the next one. Thank you very much. If you have questions, please feel free and send through your questions so we can provide the appropriate answer.
All right. So thank you very much, members. We'll allow for 15 minutes of questioning for now. And then he will continue with the next presentation, which has to do with customer or client relations. So if you have any question, you can either type it or raise your hand, and then we'll call you to take your questions. Thank you. There are questions now. In-house, welcome. Do we have any question? I know you've been following online whilst coming to this place. So if you have any question, you can feel free and ask. No question for online. Insightful presentation, sir. Keep it up. All right. That's from Dennis.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other question? We want to encourage members. I think per the institution's constitution, once you are 5 years and above, you can register your own company. And so I see this presentation as timely for our young surveyors who may want to venture into, setting up their own companies. And if you have any question regarding registration, this is the time to do so. The resource person might not be on the platform to answer. To put it forward so that we can have answers from the experts. Okay. Surveyor Jones wants to know, is a public officer allowed by law to register and operate a company? Public officer.
This one is for the lawyers to answer. This, am I audible? Please, can you hear me? Okay, great. So I was saying that this is for the lawyers to answer. But I have seen a lot of or some few public officers registering and owning companies, except that there are times that or should I say, for conflict of interest purposes, there are certain contracts that you cannot bid for, or as it were, even if you want to bid for it, then you need to declare your intention. Some laws or some jurisdictions will not allow you to tender in for some contracts, basically. But I've seen public officials also having companies. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, any more? Sylvia Jones, I hope you've been answered. All right, Sylvia Joseph Saki, how long does it take to register a company? Sylvia Joseph Saki wants to know how long it takes to register a company.
Well, thank you, Sylvia Jones. Did I get it right?
Joseph Saki.
Joseph Saki, okay. The ORC has made it clear that it can be done in a day. Okay, but this is highly debatable because as we speak, their website is down. Once the website is down, it means that you can't go online to complete the forms and all of that. But there is a prerequisite to that. It means that before you go online to start the registration process, you should have gotten your TIN number ready, which means if you had an old TIN number and you now have your Ghana card, you need to go to a GRA office to get it merged for you. You need to have gotten your auditor's consent letter ready. You need to have, if it is a partnership, gotten your partnership deed ready and stamped by the Lands Commission and all of that, so that now when you sit behind your PC and you go online and you complete the forms, it can go through that quick process. And then according to the ORC, this is not according to me, according to the ORC, that can be done in 24 hours. But on the average, I guess this should take you about 2 to 3 weeks for you to go through the entire process. That's if you should go by the previous manual process of registering companies, because you still need to physically go to the office. You still need to speak to an officer. You still need to do you will not do your payment electronically. You would have to go to a bank that is stationed in their office to receive the funds, get the receipt printed, complete the forms, manually hand it over and all of that. So that should take you between 2 to 3 weeks. I'm sure that you should be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia Frank. Sylvia Frank wants to know, is a limited liability company able to convert to another type of business, like from limited liability to a sole proprietor, or vice versa?
Well, what I know is that you can do a bottom-up approach, but you can't do an up-bottom approach. So what I mean by a bottom-up approach is you can convert from a sole proprietor to a partnership or to a limited liability company, but you can't convert downwards. So to that extent, if you have a limited liability company, it means you have shares in it, and you would be a shareholder within that company, but you can register another company with a different name, a different entity, and trade as a sole proprietor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let the questions keep flowing. We have, I think, 5 more minutes for the questioning. right. In-house, what are the tax obligations for sole proprietorship and then limited liability companies? If, for instance, I decide to register my company as a sole proprietor, will my tax issues be different from somebody who registers as a limited liability company?
Okay, so by way of response, if you're a sole proprietor, your tax obligations definitely are different from someone who is running a limited liability company. Okay. Now, in relation to taxes, you as a sole proprietor annually, I think currently there is a law that mandates every Ghanaian to file their taxes every year, and that should be done latest by the 4th month of the following year. Of course, you can go for extension, and that could give you some 2 months leeway. So typically, if your deadline is end of April, you could file in, or you could submit a letter and get a 2 months extension to do it at the end of June. But as a sole proprietor, you need to file your taxes. Now, the difference here is this. For you as a sole proprietor, you'll be taxed like an employee. So the rates of tax that they apply is the graduated one, which we call pay as you earn, the payee. So at the end of the year, when accounts are prepared for you, the profits that you make, right, is taxed using the graduated rate. But for a limited liability company, there is a cap, a max 25%, and that is what is applied. Currently, there's been new additions to all of that. Okay, so it's not just the 25%, but then there's the stabilization levy that has been implemented, and based on which industry that you operate within, a certain rate applies. You understand? But if you register a company, the profits of the company are taxed at a certain defined rate, unlike the sole proprietorship. You understand? Now, if you are talking as a director of the company or as a shareholder of the company, then we assume that being the owner of the company, you'll be paid dividends, right? So if you are paid dividends out of profits, that's when dividends are declared. You need to pay tax on that. Now, that needs to be accounted for as part of your other earnings. So typically, if you are filing your taxes at the end of the year, then now you need to bring into the basket, in relation to the account, income earned from every other source. So you could be an employee working as a staff of the GIS office, GHIS office, and be earning a salary, but you own shares. You've set up a limited liability company, and maybe you own 50% or 60% of the shares, and someone else owns 40% of the shares. Now, when you declare dividends, that income that you get from that dividend must be added to the salary or the annual salary that you get from GHIS, and that will form the basis of the tax that you file with the GRA. If you earn any other income apart from that limited, all of that needs to be brought into one basket and accounted for. But for the sole proprietor, of course, it's the same. The sole proprietor could have 2, 3, 4 businesses. All of that needs to be accounted for. Except that I think if you're a sole proprietor, you get to pay more, basically. Effectively, you get to pay more. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions here. One from Joseph Saki. He wants to know, what's the difference between ventures and sole proprietorship?
They are the same. I think it's an issue of semantics and choice of name. Some could call theirs ventures. They are sole proprietor ventures. Some could call theirs enterprise. Some we have seen, what else? It's enterprise, it's ventures. Basically, these are the two.
Right. And then Dennis also want to know, how are the taxes determined when jobs don't come? Is there a flat rate for taxing limited liability?
Yes, I think I touched on that earlier on. That's the typical 25% corporate taxes. But you see, this is for normal limited liability. Depending on which sector you operate in, a certain rate applies to be applied on your profit before tax. Thank you.
Can you please explain what the re-registration form is about, and when is it necessary for a company to re-register?
Okay. So re-registration was brought about by the XWOW. Well, I don't want to say XWOW because they are still in existence. Registrar General's Department, where they conducted an exercise for companies to re-register with the institution. Some companies, as I speak, have still not re-registered. So if your name is being stricken out of the documents or of the company's register, if that is the word to use, you need to re-register, and that is the form that you use. Thank you.
So there's another question. Someone used a Ghana Post GPS address of cemetery and another within the center of a highway to register for a company, SNIP and GRA. How are these challenges addressed?
I think someone is just trying to play smart, because typically these addresses are a requirement, right? But this is not an issue of a police case where if you need to bail someone, the police officer will follow you home to check your residence. Well, see, as you are standing in as surety for someone, right? So the ORC will not follow you to your house to verify if the address or the GPS address you've provided is the right thing. However, I think this is a good point, and it's something that is worth considering if maybe a desk can be provided within the ORC to kind of do some background check on these addresses, because I mean, we are in the days of technology, and we expect that if you insert an address into Google Earth, it should be able to take you to the exact spot. So unfortunately, the ORC is not here, but I believe this is something that they can take up and see how they can address that challenge. But, people can be mischievous, but my advice to you is always try to do the right thing, because eventually it will catch up on you. If you use a cemetery, eventually it will catch up on you. If you use the middle of a street, unless maybe you can blame Google for having picked up the wrong coordinates and all of that, which I believe cannot be an excuse that will fly, if fly is the word to use. But these things can typically catch up on you, because then your credibility, if this is found out, would affect your credibility as a business. People, don't forget, people go to the ORC to check. They sometimes do background checks on companies. Foreign investors who wants to come into the country and want reliable partners go to the ORC to check their database. People who wants to provide, give out contracts and want credible people to operate with, go to the office of the ORC to do background checks. Now, if you are the sort who have provided an address of a cemetery, for instance, and someone wants to give you a contract and then picks that address, puts it in Google Earth, and it lands in a cemetery, what do you think the implication would be for you as an institute or as an institution? I think these are some of the things that you would want to really consider before you use certain, or you provide certain information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's should also give us as surveyors an opportunity to apply. We can create a job at the ORC and let them know that we are the experts. We can help them to check some of those things as and when people give false addresses. I have two more questions here, and I think we'll move, after which we'll move to the next presentation. One says, thanks for the explicit response to the Ghana Post question. This one says, if you have a company that has been dormant for some time, say since registration,
I didn't get
what is
that.
expected in terms of tax returns? So you register.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Okay, so two options apply. The first one being, if you register a company and you foresee that you will not operate, it's just prudent. Yes, prudent is the word I was looking for. Prudent is just prudent to write a letter to the ORC and inform them that you're not going to operate for some time. And you give them some timelines that maybe for the next 5 years, you're not going to operate and all of that. That letter serves as a backup for you. Now, if you've not done that, if now you've not done that and you want to reactivate the company, the ORC will think that you've operated and would have expected that you would have filed your returns. Now, if you are fortunate and your name is not stricken out, then they would expect that you pay all the penalties. I think it's 600 cedis now, 600 cedis now per annum. And it counts for the number of years that you've not filed the returns. You know, you would have to pay all of those penalties, add your audited accounts and all of that to that and file. But the good news for sole proprietors is that those penalties don't apply for sole proprietors, and then for partners, those penalties don't apply. So then you can just go back to the ORC and renew. But if your name has been stricken out, then you need to complete the re-registration form and then reapply for your name to be activated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll end the questioning here, and then we'll continue with the client relations, and then take another set of questions. Then the office registration committee will also give us their presentation. And so thank you very much. And we want to call Mr. Toto back to do his presentation on the client relations.
I need a pen drive.
Okay. Is there? Yes.
Yes, it is there. This one. The license is there before you go again. There it is.
Oh, you didn't put it in.
Yes, let me just put it in. Where is it? But it's there. It's there. It's there. It's down there. It's there. It's fine. Okay. So welcome back. And thank you for your patience. And we'll move to our second presentation, and this on client relationship management. And again, like I said earlier in before I started, these two topics are very broad, very, very huge. And trying to squeeze all of them into 2-hour presentation, I don't know. But we'll try. I'll touch on them because I guess I have just about 30 minutes more. I'll try to touch on the salient points. If time permits, and then we have to come back, I'm sure if God permits, we'll come back and have this session in full detail. But then the word client relationship or customer service has evolved over time. Back in the days, we had institutions set up a desk for customer service, and they were calling it customer service department. Now, I want to bring this home. I see amongst us here, we are basically sole proprietors and then partners. We cannot say that customer relationship management only belongs to limited liability companies or properly set up institutes or the bigger institutions and all of that. I believe that even if you are a sole proprietor, you exist because of your customers. Now, if your customers are not there, typically you are not in business because they need to patronize your products. They need to buy from you. There you can make some income, make some profits, and then you can seek to expand as you so desire. So it is a very important topic that you've chosen. I know for you surveyors and then for valuers, sometimes you say, oh, my clients are just 5 or 6, and then you typically would wait and scout for more clients and all of that. So as and when the business comes in, you go to execute it and all of that. But then the point is, can we deploy some of these best practices as applied by these big institutions into our business? There's this thing that I shared with some friends or some colleagues in the office, and I see that it permeates across board Now, is this practice where in the office, we do everything so apt. We apply the policies, we apply the rules and regulations. For example, if you need to procure an item, you follow the procurement procedures and all of that. You obtain 3 quotations. You make sure that you push for value for money and all of that. But when it comes to dealing with yourself, and I'm using the word dealing with yourself advisedly, because then if I say dealing with yourself, I'm seeing you as a sole proprietor. And typically, most sole proprietors will think, oh, it's for me. I'm just doing my own thing, you know. When it comes to dealing with yourself, you don't apply these best practices. If you need to procure something, you don't go for 3 quotations. Okay, so you have clients. How do you properly service them such that you either retain them and get them to even give you referrals? Okay, how do you win more clients so that you don't remain a sole proprietor who typically has up to 5 customers, and then that's it? You pray and hope that another business will come from somewhere or from the skies. It doesn't come, and then that's it. You seem to be wallowing in the shallow waters, if that is the word to use. You are not growing because your client base is not growing. So I'll share with you some tidbits, and at this point I'll use the word tidbits just to help you as to how to manage your customers, manage your clients, some best practices to adopt to seek to win more clients so you can grow your business. So some of the things that we'll be looking at in our presentation are the customer relationship management, or the content that we'll be looking at today are CRM goals. But bear in mind that I said that earlier on that customer service has evolved. We've found ourselves in an age where at this point, most institutes or most corporations, most companies now want to draw closer to their customer. It's no longer an issue of, okay, I'm selling XYZ. This is my offering. Come and buy it. I just display it. Walk up to me. If you want it, buy it. If you don't want it, walk away. Okay. Now you want to engage more. You typically want to even find out what is the need on the market. Okay, so you are surveyors. What are the current trends in your practices? Is this still an issue of, Mr. Isaac, I have some 2 plots somewhere. Can you please go and survey it for me? And then give me my site plan. Or if you're doing hydrological, say again, hydrographic stuff, then you're hoping that some big contract will come from one big company, which is quite rare. You know, what are the steps you need to do to grow your customer base? What are some of the things that you need to do? So we'll be looking at CRM goals or customer relationship management goals. We'll be looking at an overview of the whole CRM process. We'll be looking at the whole infrastructure. You need to, as it were, as a company, set up a good infrastructure to manage your customer base. You need to, we'll be looking at the processes involved in customer relationship management. You'll be looking at strategies for retaining customers. We'll be looking at strategies as to how to identify customers that are loyal and see how to properly reward them. What marketing campaigns you need to undertake, you know, to see how to boost your business and all of that. Now, as a sole proprietor, as a partnership, as a company, typically, you need to have goals. You need to have goals. What goals do you intend to achieve if in relation to your customer relationship management processes? I believe some of these goals, as enumerated here, are to improve customer satisfaction. Okay, you want a situation where your customers are satisfied with your service delivery. So to that extent, you want to get them closer and find out what issues they have and all of that, and how best you can resolve it for them. Now, you also want to improve the efficiency of the whole business. You want a situation where you implement systems to help you with your work so that the efficiency within your whole system is effective. Okay, you want to expand your customer base, you want to enhance sales, you want a situation where you'll be able to attract more customers, you want to beat competition. I believe there are a lot of you here in the institute. I don't have information about your numbers, but I believe there are a lot of you, some senior, some junior. Meanwhile, the land in Ghana is limited, but yet there are other services that you can provide. Okay, so how do you beat competition and stay in business? Okay, what positive impact can you make to your bottom line as you undertake all of these processes? So some of the things that we'll be looking at, if you want to do an overview of your whole customer management process, is that you look inwardly, basically look inwardly. So we're a corporate. We are a sole proprietor, or I am a sole proprietor. We are partners. Inwardly, we need to have an overview, okay, of the customer base, have an overview of the whole relationship management process that we are deploying as an entity, so as to either attract new customers, retain existing ones, okay, or even get referrals from those existing ones. Okay, now you need to do a screening of your customers. So now by screening, I mean you need to have a database of your customers and seek to categorize them. Okay, now you need to have a system of identifying these customers and getting them to know about your presence. You differentiate them by assessing them and then also assessing their values. Screen them. Okay, amongst my customer base, I have 2 government entities. What are their needs? What are their requirements? How best do I serve them so that I can make them happy? I can retain them, or for example, even get more businesses from them. I have 2 or 5 limited liability companies that I serve, provide survey services for. Maybe it's an estate company, or it's a company that is into real estate. They acquire lands and all of that. And once a while, when they need my services, they call on me. There are 5 of these. You need to categorize them. Government, limited, and yet I have individuals. Sorry. I have individuals who always engage my services because either they are family heads and they have large tracts of or parcels of land. So every now and then they need me to come and cut some, you know, to prepare a site plan so that they can sell it and make some money. You need to screen these customers. Now, all of these customers have various requirements. They have various needs. They have various expectations of you. So you need to screen them properly. Now, if you're able to screen them, then you'll be able to deploy the right strategies to see how you can meet their needs. Okay. On the third slide, on the third diagram, you see it says what? Differentiate the customer needs. Like I said earlier, all of these customers have various needs. Once you're able to identify their needs, you'll be able to deploy the right strategies to be able to meet their needs. Some customers typically want you to get closer to them. They want you to do the yes sir to them. Some customers, they don't. All they want is your service. Deliver on time, delivery on time, delivery on time, delivery on time. Once you're able to meet their deadlines, that's it. You are the best. You are the best. Some too will come, and for me, they are like a baggage. These are the customers that will not even pay you well, and yet their requirements are so much. But the question is, can you say you don't need them? You need them, right? Because they all add up to your income that you generate. They all contribute to your bottom line, which is the profits that you make at the end of the year. So then what strategies do you deploy to meet such a high demanding client? They pay low fees. They require so much. They want to call you even at midnight and they expect you to pick their calls and answer their calls. That way you are the best. Okay. If you're able to internally do a proper screening of these customer base, then I can say that you're on the right footing to deploying a good CRM system within the organization. Now, don't forget, I said I'm just touching on some of these things. I'm not going to go into details because then we are squashed for time. You need to have a proper infrastructure in place to be able to facilitate your CRM process. What infrastructure am I making reference to? What systems are you putting in place? I had earlier on mentioned the need for you to have a good database, okay? Good database, which is properly classified based on the needs and the wants and the service level requirements from these clients. Now, if you have this database, you'll be able to deploy the right infrastructure. What systems you need to put in place? You now need to set up a call center. I don't think for a sole proprietor, you need a call center. But at least you can have a secretary who has the mindset or who has been conditioned. The mind has been so conditioned that they must respond to all calls and make sure that all customer queries are resolved. Okay. Are you going to deploy a system where your customers will be able to contact you via the web? For example, are you going to institute chat systems? There are some websites that have a chat tool such that if you go to the site of that institution, there's a chat box where you can type in your queries, type in all your issues, and then you can get immediate responses. These are tools or other things that you can do to help. Are you going to deploy an emailing system such that you deal with your clients only based on emails? Okay, are you going to involve yourself in direct sales? These are things that you need to look at based on your unique need, based on your unique requirement, so that, for want of a better expression, you don't put a square peg in a round hole. So if you are set up as a partnership, or if you are set up as a limited liability or as a corporate, what do? The kind of infrastructure that you deploy will largely depend on how you're set up, largely depend on how you are set up. Okay, how do you reach your clients? What billing systems do you put in place? Are you going to send your bills by email, or would you just handwrite the invoices and submit to them? Okay, how are you going to even take up your sales? Again, are you going to use telesales? Would you do face-to-face interactions and all of that? All of these, based on how you're set up, based on your business setup and all of that, would inform on what infrastructure that you will need to deploy. But again, as sole proprietors, and I'm having to constantly come back to this, how do we properly set up our sole proprietors or as partnerships? I am sometimes tempted to believe that, and I know that is the truth. Partnerships usually set up properly, and in most cases have a proper, better structure than sole proprietors. Okay, so as a sole proprietor who wants business, you want to grow your business, how do you go about it? I would suggest that you get a secretary to come along with you in all your dealings. Keep a good diary of all your activities and all of that. Have a proper database of your clients. And as I've said earlier on, you've been able to properly, if you've been able to properly categorize your customers, you've done that bit of the work, they've been properly categorized, then you can have regular meetings. That if you have a staff, all the better. Have your staff meetings, meet with your secretaries and deploy methods. Are you going to use WhatsApp? Because then I'm not envisaging that sole proprietors would have robust, big infrastructure in place. So then, are you going to contact your customers by WhatsApp? Are you going to use phone calls? Are you going to use emails? Are you going to use your website? I think we in Ghana underutilize websites and the functionalities that we can get from there. Typically, we build a dormant static website, and that's it. All we use that for is to sell out information about what we do. But then there are various things that you can do from your website. You can have a chat box, like I said earlier. You could have people contact you via your website. You go to your website, send you an email through the contact form, and then they should be able to get immediate responses. You should be able to implement live chats. People should be able to come to your website and make inquiries, ask for prices, ask for quotations, and all of that from you. Okay, you should develop to the level where you are able to deploy live chats. I believe, and we've seen the banks deploy that a lot. The banks have done so well with that. I believe it's something we, even as sole proprietors or as partners, should be able to roll out to enhance our business performance and to enhance the way that we handle or relate with our customers. Now we'll look at the CRM process. This involves, one, developing a customer strategy. You need to have a target market. So as surveyors, what is that target market? Are we targeting the government? Are we targeting construction companies? So, okay, so we are not just surveyors. We are valuers, we are surveyors, and then we are quantity surveyors, right? So who are we targeting? Government institutions, the chiefs, family heads, individuals, let me use the word powerful individuals who we know are wealthy and own some bit of property, okay? State institutions and all of that. What niche are we carving for ourselves, basically? All these are strategies that you need to sit and then map out so that you'll be able to develop a proper and robust system to be able to get closer to your customers. You need to have segmented your market, and this would have formed the basis of the earlier exercise that you undertook. Okay, now you need to set objectives for these customers. What we've mentioned this in our earlier slides: customer satisfaction, increase what the customer base, the loyalty, and all of that. Now, is the organization, is the sole proprietor even ready for this in the first place? We want to undertake a CRM exercise. We want to get closer to our customers. We want to be able to enhance our service delivery so that we can win more business, improve on the bottom line, and all of that. But internally, are we ready? Do we have the needed resources? All these things are items or things that you need to consider. Do you have the needed resources? Do you have the needed infrastructure to be able to deploy this CRM process? Okay, do you have the people? Do you have the tools? Do you have the manpower? Manpower people, the same, but do you have the tools? Do you have even the technological know-how? Would you need some form of training? This is a typical assessment that you need to do internally to be able to identify whether you are even ready for the whole CRM process or not. Now, if you've done this and you've found a gap, how do you close the gap? If there is the need for you to undertake training, of course, do it. If there is the need for you to engage a consultant to help you facilitate this whole CRM process, you need to do it. If there is the need for you to bring in a partner who is stronger in that field to help the business grow, you need to do this. Now, you need to execute the programs. Now, the programs needs to be what? Strategy based. You don't just deploy or programs for the sake of deploying them. You need to have a strategy in place. Now the strategy is, okay, our objective is that we want to win 50 more clients in the next 60 months. What strategy do we deploy? Are we going to use teleconferencing? Are we going to use email blasts? Are we going to use SMS blast? Are we going to use campaigns? Are we going to use radio and TV ads? Are we going to use newspaper ads? Are we going to even institute certain promotional activities just to win more customers? These are considerations that you need to have in the whole CRM process that is in relation to execution. Now, it should be focused on customer objectives. Don't forget that the idea of this whole CRM process, like we said earlier, is to increase or enhance customer satisfaction, improve your bottom line, help you win more clients, increase or expand your client base. It's supposed to also help you make more profit, win more business. So if you are deploying a program that is not customer based, then you failed even before you started. So whatever program that you institute needs to be what? Customer based. It needs to be focused on the customer. Then you can achieve your success. At the end of this whole process, you need to measure the process to see whether you've been successful or you have failed. Now, the CRM process that you deployed, were you able to meet your objectives? i.e., did you win more clients? Did the customers get satisfied? And how do you even measure satisfaction? Okay, you can get this by deploying out questionnaires and all of that to your customers. And by way of the feedback that you get, you will know whether you've been able to meet your objectives or whether the customers are satisfied or not. Okay. Has this whole process been able to contribute to the whole customer strategy? These are things that you need to measure to be able to know whether the whole process is being successful or not. Now, the next thing we'll be looking at is the client relations management in relation to customer loyalty life cycle. Don't forget, whatever you're seeking to do, and I'm repeating, I'm deliberately repeating these things, is increase your customer base. Get a more satisfied customer. If the customer is satisfied, they will come back. They'll give you repeat businesses. They would even give you referrals, right? If the customer is dissatisfied, two things are likely to happen. They would complain in your face, and some of them can really be rude, or they are the type that is like me. I don't want to fight because I don't want to fight. I'll quietly walk away. But depending on how you relate with me, I'll give you some positive feedback, but in a very cool, quiet, respectful manner. And until I see a change, I'm not coming back. There are people like that. They won't talk, they'll quietly walk away. But then if they get the opportunity to refer you, they will never, ever refer you. And what are some of the things that will make a customer dissatisfied as a surveyor? Where you've given a certain deadline and you've not met it. Okay? Or you're not sticking to your timelines. Time. I'll meet you at 10 o'clock at site. The person is there at 10, 11, 12. Then you only appear at 1. You are not time conscious. They will not take you seriously. You've taken, or you've done the survey. Yes, you've done the survey. You've promised that in 2 weeks, site plan will be ready, or the indenture will be ready, or the report will be ready. 2 weeks has elapsed. You've not presented your report. You've not even contacted your client to tell him or her, XYZ, I'm sorry, I promised you I'll deliver in 2 weeks. But unfortunately, due to ABC, I'm not able to deliver in 2 weeks. Please give me 3 more days or give me 7 more days. I'll make sure your report is ready. You don't do that. The client calls you and you rather get angry. Some clients will be patient enough once they get their site plan or they get their report, they are off. They will never call you for any business again. Okay. Like I said, it's for client retention, growing your customer base, getting a satisfied customer, and making sure that, or the final analysis, having a positive bottom line profit. Now, the life cycle here typically is to attract more customers. One of them in the life cycle process is to attract more customers. How do you attract more customers? How do you brand yourself so that you attract more customers? How are you living up to your brand image? What is the brand awareness that you're creating out there so that people will even be aware of your existence? So typically you're a sole proprietor. Do you have a website? And you see that I keep mentioning website. Do you have a website? In today's day and age, a website is basic. It's a very basic requirement that you need to have. Do you have a website? Do you have a domain name? Or are you using a Google default? So for example, if you're called Richard Robertson, richardrobertson@gmail.com. Why not have a domain for yourself? So if your sole proprietorship name is Maple Enterprise, for example, then your email address will be richardrobertson@maple.com or @mapleenterprise.com. That gives you a certain sense of identity. You understand? Why not, deploy yourself out there so you can be uniquely identified, such that this can aid your attraction of new customers. How are you living up to your brand? What kind of campaigns are you deploying out there to attract more customers? Are you going to do graphic ads again, for example, email blasts? And I see this happening all of the time. People will just send bulk SMS, speaking just short notes about the company or the sole proprietor, or let me use the word business, short message about the business, the services that you provide, and all of that. And then that's it. Repeat those blasts, SMS blasts, email blasts. And by the time you realize someone is giving you a phone call that, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Okay. How do you attract more customers? Now, how do you engage them? I think I've touched on this. There are various means that you can engage all of them. And you need to build a resilient infrastructure to help you engage these customers, be it new or be it prospective, existing customers. Okay. How do you grow the customers? Someone will ask, how do you grow a customer? Or how do you grow with a customer? How do you grow with them? It's all about relationship. Today, the customer might come to you needing just a site plan, but by the way that you engage with them, the kind of services that you render to them, the way you are apt with your responses, with your time, response to queries and all of that, that way, the next minute you see that they're giving you repeat business, and this repeat business is even bigger. Okay. Maybe instead of one or two, next thing you're doing an acre, the next thing you're doing a whole community. Okay. Or it's even giving you referrals and all of that. Is how to grow. You grow. Sorry. How do you retain this customer? What systems put them? How do you ensure that they are satisfied, that they don't walk away, they are retained? Are you meeting their needs as promised? Are you delivering the service that you promised to deliver? Or did you promise A and you are delivering B? And we've seen that happen a lot of times. Most companies promising A and delivering B means that what they lose the customer walks away and never comes back. How do you get a customer to be loyal to you? How do you enhance the loyalty of your customer? What systems do you put in place? Okay, what promotions would you run? Would you give reward points? And there are ways of doing this. You might not necessarily print out a loyalty card. Some of the big institutions print out loyalty cards, which the one that looks like your ATM card. Okay, so every now and then when you buy, you swipe, and then you win loyalty points and all of that. As a sole proprietor, I don't think you might have the infrastructure to be able to engage that. But then what can you do by yourself, being a small setup, to get your customers to be loyal to you? Could it be that you give them discounts? Do you give them added services or additional services? For example, if per normal business practice, after you've prepared your report, the client is supposed to come to you to pick your report. Can you bend backwards a bit and say you go and deliver the report to the client? That is an added service. And you see, the way to make this work for you is that you spell this out to the client and say, ideally, you are supposed to pick the report, but I'm bearing the extra or additional transport costs because I see you're a loyal customer. I want to retain you. I'm bearing this extra cost by delivering to you. It's costing me X amount, but because I want you as a customer, I'm doing this for you. If you don't spell this out, the customer will think that it's your normal way of doing things. The next time things change and you now even want to charge for delivery, they'll say, but you've been delivering the reports to me all this while. How come now you are charging? You understand? So you might deploy out, or let me use the word, provide some small added services to win this customer to your side and get them to be what? Loyal. So the next one being, how do you reward the customer? Okay, so you deploy reward systems. I think I've touched on that to retain the customer, and then you nurture them. You nurture them. I mentioned earlier, we've grown from customer service to customer what? Relationship management. So how do you nurture a customer? I have customers that I started with when their turnover was 50,000. We grow small, advice. Now they are doing the millions of CDs. So you nurture them, you give them advice. Some free. It's just by way of keeping them. Okay. Some you charge. And even when you've given a discount, let them know, ideally my price was this, but because of your size and because I want to grow with you, I'm charging you X amount, so that when you grow and you're now making big money, I can charge you my going rate. Yes, there's a risk to that, which means, and I've seen that happen a lot of times, some people grow and they run away because now they think they are big enough to deal with bigger companies. So if you're a sole proprietor, now they want a limited liability company to deal with because they think that, oh, you are too small. Some maybe by virtue of law, you are kicked out, but some typically are ungrateful and will run. But I can promise you there's a lot of them will stay with you. Okay, my time is already up. Let me just touch on this. How do you retain customers? So some customer retention strategies. How do you retain customers so that they don't go away? You could issue out questionnaires. Questionnaires as to, can you please give me some feedback of how you feel with me? Am I serving you well? Am I meeting your needs? Am I satisfying you? Is there anything that is of concern that you want me to address? Okay, you can get some feedback from your clients. And once you receive their feedback and you work on them, you are sure that these customers will stick with you. Now, you need to do a regular review of your internal processes. The infrastructure that you've put in place, is it properly working? The staff that you have, are they up to their task, or are they slowly turning into MBAs? And so now they won't work the way they have to work, and they are not, you know what I mean by MBAs, kind of. And so they become so used to the way you do things, and so they are taking your customers for granted. You can't afford to have such stuff. Okay. You need to overcome buyer's remorse. Now, people, the customers that you serve, some of them might be resentful or will have some kind of a remorse against you, or be carrying remorse about you because of how you've served them in the past. How do you overcome that? How do you talk to them, win them, and maybe apologize to them? Sometimes even say, provide a service for free as a way of apologizing to them so you can win them. Okay. You need to stay in touch. One of the strategies of retaining customers is to stay in touch or have a personal touch. There are some CEOs who will never have a personal touch with their customers. They leave everything to staff, and staff misbehave, they lose the client, and that's it. But then if the CEO or the proprietor can have a personal touch with every client, have that personal relationship with them, I believe all of these things will facilitate or enhance customer retention. You give them gifts. What kind of premium gifts would you give? Would you give Christmas hampers? All these things that we see, there are ways of customer service or ensuring that the customer is excited. Would you give Christmas hampers? If the customer is a Muslim and it's Eid, tomorrow is Eid, right? Would you buy some small sheep and go and give, just to say, hey, I cherish your business, take this for your festival? Okay. If it is Christmas, would you prepare something small on their birthday? For example, would you just send happy birthday? And we see the banks and insurance companies do that a lot. They will send you happy birthday, so and so, we wish you blah, blah, blah. Can you just have the birthdays of your clients and then just send them personal messages that are designed just for them alone, so that they can feel, a part of you? There are benefits to working hard to retain customers. Okay, we've seen, and research has proved that profits increased by 25%, but between 25 to 90% if we retain, or if retention rate is just by 5%, or a 5% increase in customers, or increasing customer retention rate by 5% can help you increase your profits between 25 to 95%. Okay. Another study shows that a 2% increase in customer retention has the same effect as decreasing costs by 10%. Just retaining 2% of your customers would help you decrease costs by 10%. Another one says on the average, loyal customers are worth up to 10 times as much as their first purchase, worth 10 times as much. Okay. I'll bring the presentation to an end. There's a lot more that we can talk about, but like I said, we will look for time, and then if time permits, we would come back. I don't want to eat much into the next presenter's time. So thank you very much. I'll bring it to an end here. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them, and we'll give you the appropriate answers. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Mr. Toto, thank you very much for the second presentation. Members in-house and online, I think we have another 10 minutes for questioning, or it's too much? You want to come before? Okay, all right. So we want to take the next presentation, and then we'll combine the questionings together. So we'll invite the chairman for the Office Inspectorate Directorate to give us a presentation, after which we'll ask both of them questions. Maybe we take some musical interlude whilst he prepares to come.
Ignite your sports passion with 22Bet. With competitive odds,
All right, so we have Surveyor Eric Okanti Mensa, yeah, to do as the next presentation. Let's welcome him with applause.
Okay, thank you very much. My presentation will be very, very short because the processes are very simple. So I don't intend to keep too long. So what are the processes and the procedure for getting your business or your firm registered with the Ghana Institution of Surveyors? So I'll quickly take you through the process. Can they see the slides? So we'll be talking about the application procedure, the assessment procedure, and then of course the directors, companies, offices, your personnel, your equipment, and then your vehicle. So in effect, this gives a summary of what it is in getting your firm registered with the institution. So what are the application procedures? First of all, you pick a form with the Secretariat, Ghana Institution of Surveyors Secretariat, which is here. You fill the form. You can also go online and download the form at a fee of 250. That is, you pay for the application form when you are submitting the full form at the Secretariat. And then you submit the application at the Secretariat. The Secretariat forwards your application to LSD ESCO. LSD ESCO forwards your application, assess your application and forwards it to the Office Inspectorate Committee, of which I'm the chairman. What the Office Inspectorate Committee does is that we conduct a physical inspection of your office space, your facilities, your personnel and others. And then we come up with a report, which is then forwarded to ESCO for their assessment. And ESCO continues with the process, approves, and then gets your firm registered. So in short, these are the procedures that they have to go through. You pick your form, fill your form, submit your form at the Secretariat, and then the processes follow until the application is approved, and then your firm is registered with the institution. What are the assessment criteria? So when your application is forwarded to the Office Inspectorate Committee, what do we look for? Of course, you should have a director because it's a company. You should have a director who is a professional member of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors for a minimum of 5 years. If you are a technical person, then you should have a minimum of 8 years with the institution. It is also acceptable to have a partner to be a director, and a partner should be a person coming from the built environment. So you realize that in the registration process, they talk about partnership. So you can also partner with somebody, but in this case, the partner can be from LSD or from the built environment or a person who is quite resource to assist you in building your business. So what do we require from you as far as your company is concerned? It must be a firm duly registered with the Registrar General Department. That is in accordance with the law. You must have an office space, office address, and your office must be equipped with, of course, the office equipment. It must have furniture, it must have workstations. You have to get a secretary to man the office for you. Of course, you must have personnel. You must have geomatic engineers, at least one. You must have technicians, at least two, and any other personnel that you deem relevant to the running of your business. Then equipment, very important as far as our profession is concerned. Your business must have all the equipment, or at least minimum number of equipment that are required. So you must have at least one total station. Now total station is off the system, but at least it's quite flexible. We can overlook that. But it is required that you should have at least 2 units of GPS, a spirit level. And then also you must show your capability to rent if you don't have, because not everybody can acquire these instruments. You must show your capability to be able to rent this equipment to run your business. So if there's a need for you to get a total station to run some field service and you don't have, you have to show your ability to be able to rent one. You must have a vehicle. If you don't have a vehicle, because of course not everybody can acquire a vehicle or even afford to buy a vehicle, but you must show your capability to rent a vehicle as and when it is required. So in a nutshell, it's very, very simple, and this is what it is. If you follow these processes and your procedures, you can have your business registered. I will show you a sample of the application form that you have to pick from the secretariat. If you can't come to the secretariat, you can download on the internet. You just have to fill and submit at the secretariat. So as I said, very, very simple. The requirements on the form are very simple. Those that can easily be, obtained and get the form filled, and then you can fill your form and submit. So I want to thank you at this point. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Savia Erikukante. Members, we've come to the end of the presentations and we want to allow for some 10 minutes of questioning to the presenters. So you can either raise your hand, we call you, you talk, or you type your questions on the chat line, and then we will read them out to the presenters for answers. Thank you very much for your time and everything. In-house, do we have any question? Okay, Savia Hackman.
Can I go? Thank you, Chairman, for the occasion. I have a question to my senior, Savio Kante. The earlier speaker mentioned that even when you are in public service, you can still have a company running. Just that you make sure you don't get yourself into conflict of interest where you feel that you'll be in conflict of interest, you don't even bid for that contract, or you declare your stance. Now, I want to find out from our own provisions. You listed the directors of the company, who qualifies to be a director and who qualifies to partner the main director to get the company registered, recognized by the institution. I want to find out, is it wrong for a co-director to be a public servant or public service officer? If not, and if the institution allows that, what category of people are allowed? Because you've had such a situation before, where a company was denied registration by the institution because the co-director was a staff of a public institution. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I can understand what you are talking about, because I was privy to that kind of situation that we find ourselves in. I don't know what the law says. I think we have to refer to the law. Whether if you're a public servant, you can, engage yourself in business and open a firm. But listening to the first presenter, when it comes to registration of firms, he made mention of the fact that if you're a public servant, you can't register a firm, just that you don't have to find yourself in a conflict of interest situation. So that is what you have to look at. I think that is a situation. You can register a firm, you can partner a person who you think you can work with within the same, profession. But again, you must be sure that you are not engaging yourself in the conflict of interest. So, for example, you are a director, and there's a business you've partnered somebody, and there's a business in which you are interested. You simply have to make sure that you out of that particular, contract, or bidding for that particular contract, because when you do that, then it means that you are getting yourself into the conflict of interest situation. So that is what I can say as far as partnership is concerned, if you are a public servant.
All right. From online, somebody wants to know, where is the boundary between appreciating the customer and overstepping into bribery and corruption that can be said to influence a government or a corporate entity? I think as part of keeping the,
Okay, so this is quite a dicey one. But you see, each institution have their own rules and regulations and set of policies, right? So the director or whoever it is you want to appreciate, you need to first gauge where they work, what are the rules and what are the policies there. There are certain gifts that are seen as minimum baseline gifts, and which, will not raise an eyebrow. So, for example, if I see, sorry. So, for example, if I see that you work at the Ministry of Road and Transport, and you are the top man who is in charge of contracts, you've given me contracts in the past. The value of gifts that I give to you, would that amount to, for example, 10% of the value of a contract that you earlier on awarded me? Or even 5%, or even 3%, 2%, 1%? Because I'm using these percentages because then they are relative. 1% of $100 million is huge. When 1% of 100,000 cities is small. relatively, or 1% of 10,000 cedis is small. You get it? So the amount that you are giving out should be such that it won't raise eyebrows and cannot be misconstrued to be bribery, because two things apply. Someday, that public officer can be investigated. Maybe unless you pay that amount by cash. But someday, if, for example, you deposited that huge amount in their bank and they are being investigated and you are asked, on what basis did you pay that amount to this person? What response would you give? And especially if that person had given you a couple of contracts or even one contract before. But then, what if you give the person a box of perfume? Could be a very expensive perfume. But that's it. It can never be misconstrued as a bribery, but that can equally fly as a gift. So you just need to be careful. The lines are quite hazy. Like I said, you need to gauge who you're giving it to, the institution they belong to, and all of that, and make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question goes to Surveyor Eric. What is a reasonable show of capability to rent equipment or vehicles?
Well, okay, that's a nice one. Because of course we need to find out your ability in terms of, because of course if you are renting a vehicle, you are renting with money, so you must show your capability in terms of you know, your accounts or something that can tell us that you are actually capable. Of course, we'll come for an inspection of your office. We'll look at what you have in your office, and we can also determine, from the inspection, looking at the kind of equipments and the kind of resources you have in your office, whether you'll be capable to rent a vehicle or something like that. We will also interact with you and find out from you yourself whether you'll be able to rent a vehicle or not. Thank you very much.
All right, so there are a series of questions for you, Surveyor Eric. The next one is from Frank. Frank wants to know, is it compulsory to register your company with GHIS? And if it is not, what are the benefits that will encourage members to register their companies with the institution?
Even though it's not compulsory, we will entreat you to register, so long as you're a member of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. What it does for you is that it opens up, it gives you recognition of your company. It gives your company recognition. So if you are bidding for a job, the institution can back you in terms of recognizing you as a member, your company as a member of the institution. So it's very important for you to register, even though it is not compulsory.
And I think some contracts also do state that you should be a member of a registered profession. So, yeah, the next question says, a question to the Office Inspectorate: can a remote consultancy be registered under GHIS where the company doesn't use GPS equipment, but rather sets up camp on project sites to audit their survey operations?
Okay, so this is a conversation going on, virtual offices, where you don't have the brick and mortar office where you have your equipments and your staff in there. It's a conversation that is going on. For now, we've not had a look into it. This is what we have so far. So maybe going into the future, we'll start considering your virtual offices, and we see how best we can incorporate that into the criteria of membership into the Ghana Institution of Surveyors.
All right. The next question is also for you. What are some of the financial responsibilities of a company registered with GHIS? Are some of these responsibilities not the reason why many members are not registered with the institution?
What I know is just speaking on the form, which is 250 cedis, Ghana cedis, and of course the fees, the fees that comes annually, and that is what it is. And I don't think it is too much for a person who is running the business to afford. So that is what it is. If you, relative to the benefits that comes out, if you are like we are saying, you are bidding for a job and the institution will give you a backing or a recognition. And because sometimes it is required that do you belong to an institution? And of course, if you are registered, then you can have the backing and recognition of the institution, you know, for you to be able to bid and win your job. So looking at the fees that you pay against the benefits that you will get, I think the benefits far outweighs the fees. So that is what it is.
All right. I think we'll take these two questions and then we'll bring the curtain down. One from Kingdom Galley says, wonderful present. From Kingdom Galley, wonderful presentation. I would like to know from the second presentation how to manage an aggrieved client whose past experience wasn't great. Hence, trust issues arise even though you are doing your best to meet his demands. And then the second question is, secondly, explaining processes that are out of your hand to control and same to clients are quite difficult. How do you go about this? I hope the questions are clear. Okay,
so thank you very much. I'll take the first one. How do you manage a client that is aggrieved as a result of a certain bad experience? One, you need to have a meeting with that client. Two, you need to sincerely apologize. Now, that apology must be rendered out of sincerity of heart. You need to be able to demonstrate to that client that you are sincerely sorry for the bad event, and they need to see that even on your facial expression. You need to explain to the client how important they are to you and the fact that their business means a lot to you, and that whatever it is that happened was just a mishap and that it will not happen again. The other bit being that you need to have, you see, once trust is broken, it means it requires that you need to work harder. So you need to have that personal touch with that client. It involves a bit of hard work. So this could include giving, say, if they trust you and you are fortunate and they give you back business, constant updates. It's key for this client. You need to constantly update them every step of the way. One. Two, if there are issues that are out of your hands, you need to have clearly stated this even before the commencement of the contract. You need to let them understand that A, B, C, D is out of my hands. It lies with maybe X, Y, Z. You do not control them. But then you need to be able to demonstrate a good understanding of the process, of that process that lies with X, Y, Z. And you need to explain that clearly to this client, that these are the processes. Ideally, it will take, for example, 3 weeks for me to get that process completed. I'll see how I can manage to get it out for you in a shorter period of time. Maybe if we would get it out in a shorter period of time, it will cost X amount. That needs to be clearly spelled out. Now, if the client commits to that and pays you, then you need to make sure that you deliver. I would typically want a situation where you under promise and over deliver. It really works very well. Sometimes in our bid to win a customer, we go and over promise them heaven on earth, and then we get to under deliver. That way we shatter them. So I, from my point of view, would under promise you, but then would over deliver. And then by that, I get to win your confidence back. Thank you.
How about the second one? Explaining process that out of.
Yeah, I've handled that.
Thank you very much. The last question, the person wants to know whether you need to be a fellow of the institution to be able to register a company, and the answer is no. Because after being a professional member for 5 years, you are qualified to register your own company. And so it's not a matter of you being a fellow, because you only attain your fellowship after 10 years of being a member. And so that one is no. We want to invite my vice, who is also the chairman for the AGM, to give us a word. While he's doing that, the chairman of the division should also be getting ready, so that after him, he will give us a word, and then we'll bring the curtains down. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy that I've been given this opportunity. And I want to let members know that registration for the event is ongoing. And even though we opened up the portal for registration less than a week ago, we already have crossed 100. We are in the numbers of 100. And so all members who have not registered should ensure that they register, because we need the numbers to do the planning and complete it. I want to tell you that it is a very big opportunity, and for the actual fees that should have been paid has been slashed heavily by the ESCO. And so take this opportunity and join us. We are going to have a whole day for tourism. Likely we'll go to the Molly National Park, Larabanga, mosque, the Mystic Stone, and then we go to that other mosque. There are other, how do you call it, tourist sites within Tamale that we would like to see, but we are still talking. And so if there is time, we will see those sites too. We should also know that there's going to be free buses. So this is something that is coming at virtually no cost. So I will urge everybody to join and to make sure that this event becomes a very big success. It's the first time we are going up north, and it's the first time we are doing about 4 days outside our offices. So just make sure you take this seriously, and then you join the fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Planning Committee Chair and my vice. Sylvia Labi. LS Divisional Chair. Hello, Sylvia Labi. All right. Is he speaking? He's not speaking. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for this presentation. I want to use this opportunity to thank you all for participating. We will send you the recorded version as well as the PowerPoint presentations for you to go over. And then if there's any other information that you need, if you want to commence the process of registering your own company, either with Registrar General and then with the division, you can follow those steps and then do the right thing. Shall we please be upstanding as we take the closing, the national anthem of the institution? No, the divisional anthem, sorry. Thank you very much. As in a form of an advert, so please take your seats. In a form of an advert for Mr. Toto, my supervisor actually introduced him to me some years back, and from 2011 to date, he has been my personal accountant, filing all my returns, and then my company, whatever, with both VAT and the Registrar General, and then the GRA for me. So if you have a firm and you need someone to handle your accounts for you, I think you can just get in touch with me, and then I'll to him for whatever advice or whatsoever you need. Thank you so much once again, and God bless you all for participating. We hope and trust that our next CPDs you will attend both in person and then virtually as well. Thank you, and God bless you.